What's up and welcome back to another live stream slash cut down video later on. We are going to talk about all of these different things for the MSI Vector GP68. This is on paper, a phenomenal deal in the RTX 4080 category. Currently, as far as I can find, the cheapest RTX 4080 that money can buy. Now, MSI's website says 175 watts. So this is my 2023 gaming laptop rank list. This is the MSI Vector GP68. If you were to buy this today for $18.99, you'd actually get an i9 processor, but it's a 12th gen 12900H. Today is actually gonna have the i7 13700HX. The i9 12900H, 6 performance cores and 8 efficiency cores. And the i7 13700H, it has 8 performance cores and 8 efficiency cores. So the one we're reviewing today actually has 2 more performance cores than the one that's on sale for $18.99. But this MSI Vector GP68 has pretty much the very best GPU performance for your dollar. First up, we have the MSI Cyborg 15. You get an RTX 4060 for $799. It's some really good silicon with a crappy display, decent-ish processor, and only 8 gigs of RAM, but it is DDR5, so you don't have to worry about single channel or dual channel. But you get an RTX 4060, and it's $799. Asus TUF A16, Ryzen 7 7735HS with an Radeon RX 7600S, and this thing's $200 off right now, $899. Acer Nitro 5, this went back on sale again, $969 for this Acer Nitro 5, QHD 165Hz display, not as bright at only 300 nits, but 100% DCI-P 3-color gamut, RTX 3070 Ti, 16 gigs of DDR5, and a Ryzen 7 6800H processor. So you're getting a ton of graphical performance, you're getting a high quality display in this, and it's only $969. MSI Katana i7 12650H RTX 4070. It's not a low watt RTX 4070, it's 105 watt. HP Omen 17 also is currently on sale. i9 13900HX with a QHD display. RTX 4090 is $2699. And the 4080 version is actually also on sale at $1999 right now. Under $2,000 for the RTX 4080 Omen 17, which I think is a tremendous potential. This includes a QHD 240Hz display too. So in some ways, this Omen 17 might be an even better bang for the buck. Now, this is all plastic build rather than a metal build, which we're getting with the GP68. So that's an advantage to the MSI Vector. Overall, this thing, the Omen 17 should present a really awesome amount of performance and display quality without any glaring weaknesses. Here's the box. We got the MSI logo, gaming laptops, the Dragon, i7 13700HX, RTX 4080, 1TB SSD, DDR5 16 gigs. What has this got in it? It's got the laptop right here and a fabric cloth. Let's go take a look at the power adapter first. It's gonna be about not quite 6 feet long, but it's pretty close to 6 feet long, nice and long power cable. This is a 330 watt power brick, and that might be a bit overkill if they're actually only trying to go for 235 watts total throughput. So we end up with a fairly large power brick. Look at the power brick size. It's the big beefy one, the same one that comes on the MSI GT77. You do get a nice Velcro strap on the power brick though, which makes it easier to, take around and plug in. And this cable is only a little bit shorter, about 4 feet long or so. This is the phone number you'll want to write down. 24 hours a day, Monday through Friday, but not open on weekends. They have the limited warranty summary. It's a 12-month warranty. It does not cover things from accident, misuse, abuse, neglect. All of our little layout coverage right there. Connect the power before you power the laptop on. That's very important. Your function keys, they have all of these extra little shortcuts, guides here. Look at that clean metal lid. Ooh, it's nice. It feels nice. Now this is a plastic back. This little back section, I'm pretty sure that's plastic. This is metal. I'm pretty sure this is plastic on the bottom. So you get a metal keyboard deck and a metal top lid and then a plastic bottom. I think a nice combination because the bottom that way does not get too hot, doesn't build up heat. But then all the surfaces that you touch and interact with have the stiffness and premium feel of metal. This hinge is extremely sturdy and firm. Look at how firm this is. I set it and there's very little wobble. And moving it takes a lot of pressure. Goes in and out. This is like the same as the new hinges on their GE68, 68, GE78. I love this hinge design. I think it's gonna last a lot better than their previous kind of hugging the screen hinge design. I don't know, we'll see. Glass touchpad that feels very nice and premium. I like the glass touchpad a lot. The keyboard also is per key RGB, which is a great touch if you want to have a bit more of a premium feel to the laptop itself. And I don't believe there's any rear RGB lighting as well. It's just the keyboard backlight on here. There's a lot of air ventilation for air intake, and you can see the copper heat pipes. It's a little bit beefier, got a little bit more chunk to it. This is two USB 3.2 Gen 2 USB-As, and this is a USB 3.2 USB-C with DisplayPort 1.4 support and power delivery support. So you get both on this port. And of course we have a big fan exhaust over here on the right. On the rear, we have flanking exhausts on the left and right sides, and the RJ45 Ethernet port, HDMI 2.1, so a high quality HDMI port, another USB-C, and the power port. That is not a USB-A, that is a power port, though it is kind of similar in size to the USB-A input. So you gotta be careful not to try to jam a USB-A into that port. This is a Thunderbolt 4. So you have Thunderbolt 4 support, you can do Thunderbolt 4 docks. This should have power delivery and DisplayPort out. You get a full-size SD card reader, which is phenomenal. Okay, so here's a headphone or headset combo port for headphone and mic in and out. Got another fan exhaust over here. So excellent port selection on this laptop. You get 5 total USB-A and C's put together. You know, you only have 2 USB-A's on it, but that's still okay. That's still pretty good. It looks like we just need a Phillips head for this, but the main thing we'll need is going to be like a plastic pry tool like this, a guitar pick style pry tool. Yes. Yeah, it looks like it's coming right up. Just make sure if you take this thing off to use a plastic pry tool, not a metal one. If you use metal on the plastic, you'll just like totally gouge the plastic. This back piece comes up and over the back. So if you're gonna pry this, so it's kind of pulling back with my fingers actually worked really well. Oh, okay. You can see there's a little lip right here. I'm gonna take this and I'm just gonna try to take this down the whole way. There we go. That is some gorgeous copper piping. This is a 90 watt-hour battery. Not quite maximum, but it's pretty close to maximum. That's a good size battery, which will help with battery life. 2 large speakers. See these speakers? These are big boys. We've got our battery disconnect right here. We've got our memory shroud right here. This covers our 2 memory modules. 2 M.2s. Intel AX211 Wi-Fi. So you get the more expensive Intel Wi-Fi card with this laptop. It is a Samsung SSD. So a Samsung 1 terabyte SSD. All right, and there is that totally empty SSD slot right here if you want to slap in a new SSD. This heat pipe layout looks to be really good. We've got a nice shared heat pipe right here that goes all the way to the side exhaust fan. We also have this dedicated heat pipe for the GPU, and we've got this shared heat pipe to the CPU and GPU. So that way, all of the fan exhausts, all 4 of the fan exhausts are shared for the CPU and GPU. At least some of the heat is going to be dissipated. Even when you're under a CPU only load or a primarily GPU only load, then you're going to be always using all 4 fan exhausts, which now this is the GPU. We've got the VRMs getting like a double heat pipe coverage over here. And that just goes over here. It's a dedicated heat pipe just for the VRMs. We've got this big metal plate going over the 4080. Look how big that 4080 is compared to the 4060, 4070, 4050 laptops we've been reviewing. This is a huge amount of space for that GPU. We got the Intel CPU over here. And we do have a dedicated heat pipe just for the VRMs for that CPU too. So the CPU, when it's running, gets 4 heat pipes. The GPU, when it's running, gets access to 5 heat pipes. So very interesting thermal design. I think it's going to be really good. To pop open the RAM, I do recommend unplugging the battery. So the cover has a little sticky on it. that makes it a little harder to lift up. So it's an 8 gig 1RX16 PCE PC5 4800. So this RAM, at least out of the box, is not 5600 RAM, it's 4800 RAM. So you're probably not gonna be able to get this to go all the way to 5600, at least not without trying to just OC it or something. I think the internals in this laptop are good. You got your RAM upgradability, you got SSD upgradability, you got Wi-Fi upgradability. The battery is a good size, and the heat pipe layout looks great. Power button has an illuminated LED right here for green, for yellow, and white. Okay, so it does have Windows Hello. So now let's try it again. All right. Woo, worked really fast. All right, so we're gonna lock. We're in before I can press a button. It's Windows Hello is really fast. Pretty low resolution on the webcam. The actual image that you're getting for the 720p megapixel resolution or whatever, 720p, it's actually not terrible for the resolution. You get good hair definition here, and the image quality doesn't look terrible, but it's also just very low res in general. Like the actual details when you zoom in, you can see it's pretty minor, like this Lumix, you can barely read this. Overall quality is about average for a gaming laptop, and the colors I think are meh. You click this engine button over here on the left, and then right here is the per key RGB MSI keyboard. And this is the only light you can change. There's no rear lighting, there's no backlighting, you know, front RGB light bar or anything like that. It's all just this per key RGB keyboard. And there are a bunch of different options in here that you can pick. Another thing to keep in mind with this keyboard is that there are translucent keys, just like on the GE68 and GE78. WASD keys are extra translucent, as well as the arrow keys here and the power button. All right, so let's go ahead and switch to Aqua. Looks pretty cool, kind of like a flowing river or something. Aurora, I do like Aurora. It's like purples and greens and blues, kind of like the Aurora Borealis. Chakra is my favorite. It gets the full rainbow color light spectrum, and notice how smoothly everything transitions with the per key RGB lighting. This is default. This is a pretty pizzazzy, crazy colors and all the different keys, but it's kind of randomized to me. I don't really like it as much with the RGB lighting turned off. This is Drain. So Drain is all of the colors coming together, circling the keyboard and going to the center. This is Freeway. So like cars passing on a freeway in each of the lines of the keys. This is Gold Splash. Yeah, so just a stable backlight. And then this is Rainbow Split. The keyboard backlight itself, I don't think it's too dark. It does look very easy to see, but it's not as vibrant and as punchy as the Razer keyboard. You can see how bright the Razer Blade 18 RGB keyboard is over here. Hard to see, you got all the brightness reflecting off of the Blade 18 there. You get a mute, volume down, volume up, turn off trackpad, microphone mute, turn off webcam, launch MSI Center. So F7 launches MSI Center. F8 is your keyboard backlight, display brightness down and up, and then your monitor selection is F11. But nothing on F12, print screen, F12 is a missed opportunity right there. Print screen, insert, delete, multiply, divide, addition, and subtraction. And then you got your number pad button with an LED indicator light on the key itself. That's nice. And then you've got your 10 key right here. It's a different layout than standard, but it still is gonna work pretty well. And you have a dot key and an enter key over here. So you can see there's some functionalities. You got the up arrow is max fan mode. So you just hold FN right here and you press the max fan button. Down arrow is crosshair. Right arrow disables your screen, or maybe puts it into lock to sleep. Yeah, put the laptop to sleep. And then the last functionality is play pause on the left arrow, which is nice. Here's the backlight bleed test, and definitely some blacklight bleed in the bottom left and bottom right on this one. A little bit in the top right, a little bit in the top left. So there's a little bit up here, a little bit right here, a little bit over here. I can see it in this left corner mainly. You're mainly only going to see these in really dark games anyway. The actual keyboard layout here is really, it's good. It's a very good keyboard layout for typing, and this feels more premium. This is the same like keyboard feel as the GE68. It feels really good. It's probably the exact same keyboard that they used. I like it overall. I think it'll be very good for most people. No problems there. Key feel and travel is smooth, kind of a little bit soft, but you still get a shunk to it. So I like the keyboard overall, and I think the keyboard is a keeper. This touchpad is large. hinge. It's smooth. It's a glass touchpad, and it feels really great to use. It's got a good, satisfying click all around, except near the very top. That doesn't really click at the top, but it's a plenty large enough size in my opinion, and I had no problem scrolling, 2-finger scrolling, controlling, equal to the best out there pretty much. It's just a little smaller than the Razer series or whatever, but it's still very good. We got a webcam shutter. This will disable Windows Hello if you do this. So if it's red, that means it's blocked. If it's not red, that means that you can use the camera. Very minimal torque on the laptop, very rigid. I like that. And the hinge itself also very rigid. All right, so keep in mind, this tool I have underestimates the color gamut by usually 7 to 8%. Let's call it 7%. So 65% of sRGB, so we're around 72% of sRGB. Not amazing. 49 of Adobe, 48 of the P3 color gamut. We did pass 300 nits brightness. I actually did not think this was going to hit 300 nits brightness, but it did. 1030:1 contrast ratio, which is also pretty good contrast ratio. So the primary weakness of this display then is just the color gamut. It's just not a super vibrant color gamut display. Here's an example video. Overall, like you said, you can still enjoy games. Like I really do value getting to 100% sRGB. Personally, I would not buy a laptop with a display that's less than at least 90-something% sRGB. So this is the MSI Center software. I'm in the features section under general settings. Under hardware monitoring, you can see your GPU and CPU usage. It's really not that detailed though, so you really need to have a different tool if you want to monitor things more carefully. Gaming mode, there's not really much here. User scenario is the most important area of MSI Center. This is where you can set your fan profile. You can do smart auto mode. It's probably going to work most of the time. Realistically, if you're going to play games, you might as well do extreme performance or balanced mode. Now, under super battery mode, what you're going to want to do, the real battery life mode in this is going to be integrated graphics mode. So this is your MUX switch control along the bottom here. You can do hybrid graphics, which will allow you to switch between integrated and dedicated GPU, which is fine. You can do that mode too if you want to be able to switch in game and have good battery life. But in general, I like being able to switch to integrated graphics mode only when I want to really maximize my battery life. That way I know for sure my NVIDIA GPU will not turn on accidentally if some software runs in the background that uses NVIDIA. So yeah, I generally prefer using discrete graphics mode if I'm going to do primarily gaming or keep it plugged in all the time. And then when I go into battery life mode, I'll swap into integrated graphics mode if I can. And switching this does require a restart. See, it says switching GPU modes requires a system reboot. So this is not Advanced Optimus. This is a MUX switch. Features, user scenario is the primary thing that you're going to want to be able to click on. And then you can switch your modes right here. So well, I gotta say, during the initial bass, it sounded really good. Phenomenal clarity, good volume. But then, like, once all the mids and highs started coming in, it got a lot more muddled sounding to me. Very good kind of thumpy sounding bass. Much better than average on the bass front. Overall sound quality, probably like an 8.4 or 5. It was good. It sounded better, maybe even a little high. It's hard to say. Like there was points when in Peter Spacey Roar, I was like, this was like a little bit, got a little muddled. When the bass is by itself, it sounds really good. But once all of like the extra sounds came in, we just started losing a bit of the detail around the bass sounds and kind of got a little muddled with the mids. Extreme performance profile selected. Let's go ahead and turn on max fans. All right. Max fans have been turned on. 58.6 decibels for max fans is pretty loud, but it's not nearly as loud as the G277 over 60 decibels. So it looks like we're hitting right around 150 watts of power to the GPU, which is really interesting because MSI says it's 175 watts of power to the GPU. We're only getting 71 degrees on the GPU. That's excellent. 70 degrees on the CPU. That's also excellent. We're also pulling a fairly high amount of watts through the CPU here at the same time. We are on auto fans now, but in extreme performance mode still. So the fans are still likely to ramp up quite a bit higher than balanced mode or silent mode. So max fans only getting up to 57.4 decibels. That's a little bit quieter. That's 1 decibel quieter than max fans. But extreme performance, so auto fans basically saving 1 decibel in terms of volume. So, you know, the fans are not quite running as fast anymore, and our temps have adjusted upwards a little bit. 72 degrees now on the GPU, 73 on the GPU. So they're in the same ballpark, but they seem to have gone up 3 to 4 degrees approximately. We're in balanced fan profile mode. Oh yeah, 47 decibels. That's nice. Our performance appears to be basically identical. 152 watts actually to our temps though are climbing up. The GPU has hit 80 degrees. CPU 78, 86, 81, 80. But I gotta say, the performance levels are very good for the fan noise that we're seeing here, right? The performance level appears to be like 98% of extreme performance or 95% of extreme performance. The clock speeds here on the GPU are in the same range, just like 50 or 100 megahertz lower. If you're running in balance mode, what you're gonna see is good performance, warmer temps, and quiet. The wrist rest has a slight warmth, barely any warmth at all. WASD keys have a bit of warmth. The top of the laptop's hot, very hot along the top edge. This completely room temperature. This has a little bit of temperature, just a slight warmth. This, very hot. 150 watts of power still. 84 degrees, 85 degrees on that GPU. And our clock speeds are still over 2,000 in the 2100 range. It does feel like we might have just thermal throttled. Yeah, we just thermal throttled a little bit. Let's get into silent mode now. Why is silent mode still pulling 150 watts? This is gonna thermal throttle really fast. 44 decibels. Just a little bit of fan noise. Okay, now we've dropped our wattage down. 120, 130. So notice our clock speeds also going into the under 2K range. Sometimes, down to 1800 there. 120 watts of power in silent mode. This appears to be tuned a bit better now for a quiet fan profile. I would not be surprised if this eventually is still thermal throttled, but it seems like it keeps power limit throttling every time we see above 75 degrees. It seems like it's power limit throttling the GPU a little bit more. And notice the CPU is also pulling like 40 to 50 watts, and now the CPU is only doing 29, 30 watts. I think the CPU power limit was also reduced significantly. And that does help temperatures because this is a shared heat pipe system. So 77 degrees on the GPU, 78 on the CPU. I'm pretty impressed with silent mode, I'm not gonna lie. The silent mode here is better than most laptops. So let's go back into extreme performance mode with max fans like we test all of our laptops. And just so you guys know, there is a 100 megahertz core clock overclock baked into the extreme performance mode. So our temperatures are absolutely phenomenal now that we're back in extreme performance mode with fan profile curves or fans set to max. Interesting. 150 watt power limit gives us 18,739. That's pretty good, right? Considering, you know, it's 25 watt power limit. Strix G18 with a 4080 gets 19,031. That has a 175 watt RTX 4080. That extra 25 watts of power didn't really make that big of a difference in terms of times by performance, at least. And our CPU score is also pretty dang good at 15,590, which makes sense because we do have an i9 CPU in this, right? Nahimic is the software for controlling the audio on this laptop, which we did not really test when we were doing our speaker test. But it was on music mode with audio effects on, with bass boost and treble on. So that was on a good, it was on a good testing mode, at least. Probably the optimal music testing mode. We got 22,000. That's higher than we thought. That's scoring really high for this CPU, if I recall. So our core clocks are doing 4.2 gigahertz on the E cores. Oh, that's why. You got to remember this CPU is the Core i7-13700HX. The i9, the one that's listed on the link, has an i9-12900HX, or 12900H. Which is a slightly different processor. This has 2 more P cores to it, okay? So you're gonna get more performance out of this one than the one that's currently on sale for $18.99. Our power pole is 146 watts. Whoo! Package temps is 91 degrees, 22,358. Wow, okay, so we've just consistently scored over 22,000 each run. Let's see what we get in a 10-minute score test right now. 4.2 gigahertz on the P cores, 3.3 gigahertz on the E cores is excellent. 92 degrees, we're not thermal throttling on the CPU right now. 95, we're probably gonna hit thermal throttling right there. We're very close to thermal throttling. 143, now we hit thermal throttle, 96. 152 watts. 152 watts through the CPU. This is very high power limits. We've averaged 132.9 watts of power through the CPU, and our temps for our package power is 91 degrees. Our core temp package power, or our core temps were 81 degrees. Really good temps, considering how much wattage we're pulling through the system. With the i7-13700HX, we got 21,636, and our power limit was like 130 something watts down here. That's phenomenal. Overall, excellent CPU performance here. It's not the best CPU performance for your money around this price point, but it's still excellent. We are running Apex Legends, and we're running it high settings, and we're doing 290 FPS right now, which is obviously very good. Shows you the power. This feels really good. I think there's just a little bit of ghosting on the display though. Like when you look left, right, it's not as good as the 144 hertz display as like on the tough F15, for example. Wow, so I don't think we'll even need to set it to low settings, but might as well just try. Over 144 FPS for our 1% lows, 198 FPS for our overall. Apex Legends is going to be awesome. Notice our temps are also really good. 64 degrees on the GPU, 68 on the CPU. We're not even hitting our 100% GPU utilization because we're hitting the max frame rate at 298. We're going to die. Woo, we didn't die. Oh. Very good Apex Legends overall enjoyment. It's not your ideal esports game because there's a little bit of ghosting, a little bit of screen delay to the display that makes it not quite as attractive to me. Okay, so full screen exclusive. 1920 by 1200. DLSS is on quality. Minimum specs are set. Over, getting close to 60 for our 1% lows, which is good. Look at our temps right now, 50 degrees, 63 degrees. CPU is pulling 70 watts right now. That's pretty high watt pull. The GPU is pulling 50 watts. It's pulling that low of wattage because we are CPU bound. Like we're only 38% GPU utilization. It's all about the CPU in this game. Here we go. Oh, there's someone landing directly in front of us. 80, 86 FPS, 61 for our 1% low.
Tell me if you hear anybody coming.
Is this guy teaming?
Closing round. Enemy UAV overhead.
What the? What?
This is a stream sniper. This gotta be.
Oh, sing me a song and I'll subscribe to your YouTube channel. Actually, sing me a song.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
UAV
All right, so this area of the game, we're getting 90 FPS, 34 for our 1% lows. Not the best. Still feels pretty smooth. Obviously, you can play this game with this laptop, but it's not like best, most optimal Warzone 2 experience. In the bottom middle down here, we can see our FPS count. 700 to 800 FPS range right now. 700 to 800 still. That's pretty insane. You know, it's only 1920 by 1200 resolution, so it's insanely low resolution. The biggest area for CSGO is in the smoke, so let's see how low our FPS goes in the smoke coming up here. Still hanging in there. Wow, over 120 FPS in the middle of the smoke is excellent. See what we get in the middle of the smoke this time. 118 looked like. Very nice. 587 FPS in this CSGO benchmark. That's insane. That's the power of an RTX 4080, you know, running at 1080p resolution with a fast CPU. So 1920 by 1200. DLSS on quality. Graphics, we're going to go to Ultra. God of War, an excellent AAA title. Love this game. 112 FPS. I have beat God of War all the way through. It's an incredible story. Just incredibly cinematic gameplay. The gameplay is really fun. 116 FPS, 76 for our 1% lows. Truly excellent for ultra settings. I mean, it's a high FPS gaming on ultra settings at 1080. And you really are getting the extra FPS in this scenario because it's a very GPU-bound game. Notice that we're pulling 150 watts, 100% GPU utilization. It's really letting the RTX 4080 stretch its legs. An RTX 4050 in this same area only gets around like 55, 50, like a good 4050 only gets like 55 FPS. So this is getting more than double the FPS of an RTX 4050 in this game. It's like a 4060 does like 65, 4070 does like 79. And so a 4070 to 4080 upgrade is huge. 79 to 120, 116 FPS. Okay, so 1920 by 1200. Ray tracing on ultra, texture quality on high. Frame generation is going to be enabled. We're going to go to quality for DLSS. Look at our GPU boost clock. It's boosting much higher in this game. 2430, much higher than it was in TimeSpy. TimeSpy was only doing 2200 to 2300. Now in actual gameplay, 2400, 2490 actually. Wow, that's very good boost clock. It's very similar to what we saw with like the Strix G18, maybe a little bit lower than the Strix G18, but it's way closer than 2200, 2300 for the boost clock. So far, our 1% low is also super good at 115. Our frame time graph is looking nice and tight. 68 degrees on the GPU, 67 on the CPU. Those are excellent temps. They would probably creep up a little bit over time as you play. That shows you that it's got good temperature control, especially on max fans. And the performance is killing it right now. 150 FPS, 100 for our min, 103 for our 1% low. That's phenomenal. So we still have the same ray tracing ultra settings, frame generation enabled, 151 FPS, 120 for our 1% lows. My teammate keeps jumping in front of me. I hate that part of this. Oh, I died. Ray tracing overdrive. We're getting occasionally little spikes on our frame time graph. Overall, our 1% lows are looking good right now. Still very playable at 90 FPS. Wow, I took some fire and almost died just a couple of hits. I wonder what difficulty level this is. Oh, there's the boss. I was like, where's the boss? The boss is supposed to be around here somewhere. 92 FPS for our ray tracing overdrive. If we were instead to turn off ray tracing, just go to high settings. 240 FPS. Oh my God. So if you turn off ray tracing, everything looks a lot flatter now lighting wise, but 238 FPS is insane. Super high resolution, super high frame rate gaming now. So right now we're already set to low texture quality. Ray tracing is enabled. DLSS is on quality. Frame generation is on. You can see as we run, you know, and kind of encounter new things, we got these frame time blips. Like when it has to load in some kind of new set of textures or new NPCs are dropping into the world. The laptops that have had almost no frame time glitching usually have an RTX 4090. They have faster memory. Let's see what we get. 103 FPS with 40 for our 1% lows, now down to 16. Still getting those little stutters. Okay, so 98 FPS, 16 for our 1% lows. We're using 6.2 gigs of VRAM right now. We have 12 gigs of VRAM. We could, in theory, set the textures up be higher. But I don't think we're stuttering because of VRAM. I think right now we're stuttering primarily because of the NPCs. Our VRAM is jumping to 8.9 gigs used. Are we going to cap our VRAM at 1080p? I think we probably will. 10 gigs of VRAM used. This is only 1080p resolution too. It's insane. Hogwarts is insane on the VRAM. So we have not run into VRAM caps, but we're still stuttering because of all the NPCs, I believe. So the moment you leave Hogsmeade, look at our frame time graph. Look at how much better it is. Almost no stutters here now. Very little hitches or glitching. And this is what you're going to get in the vast majority of the game world when you're playing Hogwarts. You're going to get this smooth gameplay. And then you go to Hogsmeade, it'll be like stuttery. Overall, obviously very good performance. And you could get even a little bit better performance if you turn off ray tracing or turn DLSS to a little bit lower, but I probably wouldn't do that. Notice that our CPU is pulling 50 watts right now. That's not too high. Sometimes in Dead Space, we pull a lot higher wattage than this. 125 watts to the GPU. We are CPU bound right now at 1080p, only doing 81% to the GPU. 140 FPS. Temps are awesome. Look at our temps. 64 degrees on the GPU, 66 on the CPU, only 50 watts of power. The frame time graph though, yeah, we are getting little blips here, but honestly, I'm not seeing them visually. Like I'm turning the camera, it looks fine. I don't know. It's interesting. Dead Space, the frame time graph in Dead Space always looks like this. I don't know, but it looks smooth to my eyes. Benchmark run area, 128 FPS so far, 43 for our 1% low, 64 degrees on the GPU, 67 degrees on the CPU, 125 watts to the GPU, 2500 megahertz on the GPU. That's really good, very good, extremely good gameplay experience. No issues here. This is good. DLSS super resolution on quality. And for graphics, we're gonna go to ultra settings. And we would be able to run this at 1080p on ultra. Textures to medium so that I have comparable benchmarks with other laptops. 144 FPS cap. Once again, wow, 183 FPS. I have never seen that high of FPS in Last of Us before. 89% GPU utilization. We're not quite maxing our GPU utilization. We are CPU or memory bound here. 14.3 gigs of regular RAM used, which makes us very close to our 16 gigs of regular RAM. That might also be a reason why Hogwarts was stuttering earlier. 137 FPS, 121 for our 1% lows. Again, we're being CPU or maybe something is binding us, probably our CPU. Let's go ahead and see what we get when we switch our fan profile to silent mode. We were doing 150, now we're doing 134. Can you guys hear the fans? It's so much quieter. Our power limit going down all the way to 112 right here, 30 watts of power to the CPU. We were CPU bound before, now we're kind of basically extra CPU bound is the way I would describe it. Video, we want high quality ray tracing, reflex on, frame generation on, 175 FPS so far. Wow. High refresh rate, high quality gaming, maxing out the 144 hertz display of this laptop. 181 FPS, 180 for our median. Our min was 147, extremely smooth. You could theoretically just upgrade straight to a QHD display if you wanted to try to like get more visual image quality, essentially. Or, you know, if MSI had put in a 240 hertz 1080p display, for example, that also would have been a decent option. So let's see what we got for our average. 159 FPS. So once again, another AAA game. We're maxing out the 1080p resolution and frame rate. So this is going to be my final summary of everything that I figured out in my live stream. But as you can see, I did a detailed live stream here. So 1920 by 1200p resolution display had 65% sRGB by my Spider 5 Elite. But when you add the extra color gamut in there, it's like 72% sRGB, which is not great for a nearly $2,000 laptop. That's actually pretty poor in terms of color gamut, which the good thing about the display though is that it's 301 nits brightness, which was brighter than I expected. And it was over 1,000 contrast ratio, which is again, pretty good. Keyboard, I got a nice feel to it, got a nice layout, got a number pad function. The number pad's a bit scrunched. The backlight on this is pretty bright and it's a per key RGB backlight with a lot of customizable different light options. I like the keyboard. A lot of people I think are gonna really like this keyboard overall. Taking the laptop apart was a little trickier because there's a lot of screws to it and it wraps around and there's a piece of plastic on the back. The upgradability there is good though. You can replace both RAM sticks and you have two M.2 SSD slots, a 90 watt-hour battery, and the speakers in this were pretty good as well. Very thumpy, loud bass. I give them about an 8.4 overall. I think the volume could be louder, and when there is bass and mids in there together, it kind of gets a little bit muddled all together to not be quite as good of sound quality. The webcam on this was better than I expected for a 720p resolution webcam. Good detail, but it's only 720p, so it's not very good resolution on that webcam. It is an IR webcam, which allows you to do Windows Hello, and Windows Hello worked really well with this laptop. I really like that. Thumbs up. The touchpad is a glass touchpad. It feels really good to use. It's very large overall. It's got a nice click to it. Very little complaints about the touchpad. I think it's a very good touchpad. Most people will really like it. The fan noise on this on max fan was 58.5 decibels, which is a fairly loud max fan noise. Extreme performance mode was 57 decibels. Balance mode was around 47 decibels, and silent mode went all the way down almost to the ambient room noise of 44 decibels, which is very, very quiet. Ambient room noise in my room is usually around 43.5 decibels. This laptop, when you're in silent mode, still can put out pretty good gameplay as we tested in Last of Us. The power limits on the GPU in extreme performance mode is only 150 watts, which is a little bit lower than what you normally expect. But in actual games, we were seeing boost clocks to the GPU in the 2400, 2500 range pretty frequently, which is surprising. Because when you're only doing 150 watts, I would actually expect the GPU boost clock to only go up to like 2300, but when it's CPU bound, I guess it can go a little higher, because it's not really maxing out the GPU utilization. So during our fan noise testing, extreme performance with fans on max fans, we had like 70-degree temps on the CPU and GPU. That's phenomenal. Really great thermals for such a high power limit system. So the main downside about the fan noise is that when we went into balanced mode, the thermals just had too high of a power limit for that low of fan noise. And we ended up running into thermal throttling in balanced mode. Now, that's not necessarily going to mean you're going to run into thermal throttling in every game, but at least in Time Spy, a very heavy duty synthetic test, it did run into thermal throttling. Now in silent mode, it power limited the GPU down enough that it did not thermal throttle. It was only like 75 degrees on the CPU and GPU, and it was still very, very quiet fans. So A+ for silent mode in terms of gaming on quiet fans. Yeah, and the speakers are loud enough that you can do AAA games in silent mode and still hear the volume of the speakers pretty well, but it's not quite as loud of volume on the speakers as I would ideally love for AAA gaming on a premium laptop experience. But for the money, I feel like it's a good value in terms of acoustics with this laptop in silent mode. But the display does have a little bit of ghosting on the unit. It's not a super fast response rate display. I can tell there's just a little bit of ghosting to the display, which is a little bit disappointing for an esports gaming perspective. But it's not so bad that you can't play esports games. It's still pretty dang good. It's just not your optimal 144 hertz esports gaming display. Hogwarts, not optimal for sure. I think we were running into maxing the RAM out in Hogwarts, probably causing some stuttering. NPCs loading in and out. Textures were close to maxing the VRAM on Ultra textures, but not quite. Obviously, in the vast majority parts of Hogwarts, you're going to be able to play the game just fine. I mean, you're still going to be able to play the game just fine, even in Hogsmeade, but you're just going to run into some stuttering, hitching the Hogwarts Castle and in Hogsmeade because of all the NPCs and textures. Great thermal temps as well the whole time in all of these games, every single time. Cinebench R23, we were getting over 22,000 in the one-off test, and then with our single test, we got 21,000, like 700 or 600 or something. This laptop, as far as 1920 by 1200 resolution gaming goes, knocks it out of the park. Every single AAA title, every single esports game, except for Warzone 2, was well beyond the 144 hertz refresh rate, or with a few tweaks like God of War, if you just turn the settings down a little bit in certain ways, you'd easily get over 144 FPS, which makes this laptop, I think, really compelling from a graphics standpoint. The bigger issue, of course, is the display's color gamut. And there are other versions of this GP68 Vector that are on sale that you can get with different CPUs and different displays, including a QHD 2560 by 1600p resolution. Now, depending on your region, what country you're in, what stores have different availabilities, there's going to be other, like I said, other display qualities. And I think this display is going to be suitable for someone that's not that picky for their display quality. But if you really want your colors to pop and have a higher resolution gaming, which the RTX 4080 can do QHD gaming just fine, then I think a QHD screen upgrade on this laptop would be super worth it if it's a few $100s more than this one. This one's currently at $1899, currently on sale right now. Link in the description if you want to check that out. Very little to complain about this laptop. You got a Thunderbolt 4 support, full-size SD card slot, headset port here on the left side. You get two USB-A 3.2 Gen 2s and then a USB-C 3.1, I believe, both supporting power delivery and DisplayPort 1.4. And then on the back, you actually get another USB-C. So you get three total USB-C style ports, two USB-A, HDMI 2.1, and an Ethernet port. The power port is also here on the back. The number one question is, are you okay with like around 70% sRGB color gamut on your display? If you want a colorful, brighter, higher nits brightness display, then you probably should save up and get a little bit better display, a little bit better color gamut. The Omen 17 offers a better quality display. The Legion Pro 7i offers a better quality display. Really awesome displays. Like if you were to go to the Scar 16 or like, I think the biggest strengths of this laptop is the thermals, the build, the keyboard layout. The port selection is great. Windows Hello is awesome. The touchpad's awesome. The build quality is awesome. The hinge on this is super firm and rigid. I love the blend of a plastic bottom and a metal top and a metal keyboard deck. All of that is just, it's really great. This review is helpful to you guys. If it was, hit that like button. And if you want to see more of my content in the future, please consider subscribing and hitting that notification bell. I'll see you.